What's up, y'all? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be doing a Memorize the Bible with Me video. So in this video I'll be going over three things. One, why scripture memorization is so important. Two, why I chose 3rd John, and I'll give an overview of 3rd John as well. And three, the scripture memorization technique that I use. So I'll explain that and then we'll go ahead and implement it. So let's roll the intro. The first thing on the agenda is to go over why scripture memorization is so important. There are a whole slew of reasons for why believers and non-believers alike should memorize scripture, but here are just a few of them. One reason is because it allows us to have daily triumphs over sin and Satan. So when we have scripture in our heart and memorize, it'll come up more freely and we can draw on it when we're being tempted, so that it'll help us to stay away from that temptation and to stay away from sin. Another reason that scripture memorization is important is because it allows us to comfort and counsel other believers. So when we have that scripture in our heart, we can more freely give that to other people when they may be struggling with some sin or some temptation or whatever may be going on in their life. Another reason that scripture memorization is important is because it aids us when we're communicating with non-believers. So we can draw on the scripture that we already have memorized rather than having to run, crack open a Bible or open a Bible app and point to the scripture. We can share it off the top of our head, and we can love non-believers and believers alike through that. Similar in the way to comforting and counseling believers, we can also do that with non-believers or when we're just sharing the gospel with them. The last couple reasons that I'll give for scripture memorization is one, that we can commune with God when we're memorizing scripture, but then also that it conforms us to look more like Christ. So again, there's a whole slew of different reasons for why scripture memorization is important, and these are just a few of them. In the description box below, I'll have a link to the article that talks about all of these reasons in more depth if you're curious. What scripture should we memorize? Well, I'll be starting with 3rd John, and the reason for that is that I don't want to feel overwhelmed by memorizing 10 or 15 different chapters of a book. I'd rather start with something small, gain my confidence, and then move on to longer and longer text. So that's the main reason why I'm starting with 3rd John. 3rd John is the shortest book in the Bible, coming in at 219 words. The next couple shortest books are 2nd John with 245 words, Philemon with 335 words, Obadiah with 440 words, and Jude coming in at 461 words. Who is the author? Both 2nd and 3rd John are written by the elder. Now, the term elder was used for pastoral leaders of local congregations at that time. This is most likely written by the Apostle John, and this is the same John who wrote the Gospel of John, 1st John, and Revelations. Now, John was writing toward Gaius, but that doesn't mean that we can't glean anything from the scripture. This letter was written after Jesus had come and gone, and towards the end of the 1st century. We see one main theme when reading through 3rd John, and that is steadfastness in the face of opposition. We see that in three ways when reading through 3rd John. In verses 5 through 8, where it talks about welcoming church teachers. In verses 9 and 10, where it talks about church discipline. And in verse 11, where it talks about how the integrity of our faith is proven by our actions. Now, everything that I've just shared, I've gotten from my ESV study Bible. Here's an overview of 3rd John. The elder, John, is joyful of hearing of Gaius' faithfulness. John loves to hear that his spiritual children are walking in the truth. Diotrephes is stirring up trouble in Gaius' church. Diotrephes is rejecting John's previous letter. He's making accusations against John, and he's even going so far as to excommunicate church members who are inviting Christians into their homes. When truth is rejected, fellowship is fractured. And John's like, that ain't it, chief. So John writes a letter to Gaius supporting him in three things. One, that Gaius is doing what is good, even though Diotrephes is condemning hospitality. Two, that Gaius should not imitate what is evil, but imitate what is good. And three, that John is about to pull up and straighten things out in person. The scripture memorization technique that I've used in the past and will be using in this video series is pretty simple, and it's based off the Scripture Memorization Guy's Guidelines to Memorizing Scripture. This guy has memorized over 20 plus books of the Bible, and I'll leave a link in the description box below with an article describing his scripture memorization technique. So the technique is to memorize, read, listen, write, then say. So I'll meditate on the scripture for a few minutes, marking it up, highlighting, coloring, whatever. Then I'll move on to reading it out loud at least 10 times. I'll listen to it at least 10 times. Then I'll write it out at least 10 times, and then I'll say it from memory at least 10 times. So there you have it. That's an overview of why scripture memorization is important, 3rd John, and the scripture memorization technique that I'll be using in this video. For the rest of the video, I'll be applying this technique to verse 1 in real time. So if you want to mute the video and play your own music, or you can listen to the music that I have in the video, choose whatever you want. And it's 110% okay if you're faster or slower than me. All we're doing is meditating, reading, listening, writing, then saying. So let's get to it. So that's it. 3 John 1. The elder, to my dear friend Gaius, whom I love in the truth. So the next video will be memorizing verse 2 in real time. Thanks for watching.